In this English lesson, you're going to learn really important phrasal verbs when it comes to talking about your day. And the lesson is going to work like this. I'm going to tell you a story about a guy called Sam. And I'm just going to talk about what he did on this particular day. And to help you with this too, I'm going to expand on some of the phrasal verbs and give you more examples in different tenses. And this lesson is a little bit different in the sense of I want you to listen to the end and then take the challenge that I'm going to give you later. And I think this challenge is really useful. And I'm going to give you some tips as well to help you complete the challenge. But before we get into everything, hello, my name is Jack from To Fluency. It's great to have you here today. If you do enjoy this lesson, then please like and share it. It really does help me out, and I appreciate everyone who does this. And also know another couple of things. Firstly, there are subtitles for this if you're on YouTube. And also, I have left the phrasal verbs, the list, in the description. So, what you can do is listen to this once without focusing too hard on the language. So just try and absorb what I'm saying. Just try to listen and relax. And then listen to it again after reading the phrasal verbs. And feel free to turn on the subtitles at any time. Turn on is a phrasal verb. There we go. Okay, so again, I'm going to go through a story of Sam and a typical day. I'm going to explain the phrasal verbs that we use along the way, and then I'll have a challenge for you at the end. All right, so let's get started. The night before, Sam turned on his alarm for 6 o'clock. So we can use here turned on his alarm for 6 o'clock. Now the alarm woke him up, but he decided to press snooze, like a lot of people do, and he stayed in bed for an extra 15 minutes. So he actually got up 15 minutes after he woke up. So that's a key difference here. To wake up is when you go from sleep to being awake, when you open your eyes, basically. And then get up is when you leave your bed and you say, okay, I'm going to start the day now. If you're interested, I usually wake up around 6 o'clock and usually get up around 6:15 or 6:20. When I was a student, I used to wake up sometimes at midday. But these days with children and dogs, I usually get up quite early. All right, back to Sam. Enough about me. Back to Sam. So Sam immediately jumps in the shower. To jump in the shower. This suggests that you're doing things quite quickly. To take a shower, but he jumps in the shower. It's quick. Doing things quite quickly. Because most people are rushed in the morning. They have to rush to get out the door. After the shower, he puts on his suit. He has to wear a suit, so he puts this on. And then he goes downstairs, turns on the coffee machine, and then sits down with a coffee. Now, if you can get some time in the morning to sit down with a coffee and read, or maybe just meditate a little bit, or sit outside for some time with a coffee, then I think that's a good morning. It's quite rare for some people to get that time because they're always having to rush in the morning. But Sam does have this time. He sits down with a coffee and he enjoys it. However, he sits down for too long and he ends up being late. So to end up being late. End up is a great phrasal verb to know. We use it all the time and it just means what something happens in the end. It turns out he's late. So he gets in late to work. Now, to get in late means to arrive late. And this is another example of how we use get. I made a lesson on this, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. I'll just make a note of that. But yeah, Sam gets in late, and he often gets in late. Luckily, his boss doesn't really care too much, so he doesn't get in trouble. But he tries to hurry. He tries to get in on time, but he usually gets in late. Now, why his boss probably doesn't care about him getting in late is because Sam is a good worker and he knuckles down for the morning. So as soon as he gets in, he knuckles down for the morning. Now, to knuckle down means just to really focus on the work you have to do. So to really focus and not to be distracted, not to start looking on your phone and doing other things. He knuckles down for the morning. So he's really focused on what he needs to do. And he gets on with the project that he started yesterday. So to get on with a project means to continue doing something or to work on something. So he started the project yesterday and he's getting on with the project today. Now, mid-morning, his boss comes in and says, "Who would like to take on this new project? Who would like to take on this new project?" Now, you probably know what that means from context, to take on. But it means to accept, to get the project and to make it yours. So if you take on a new project at work, you're the one who's going to do the new project. And this is quite specific to business talk, to take on a new project. In the afternoon, the boss calls a meeting. Now, Sam doesn't really like meetings, but he goes there and he doesn't really want to go today because he has to bring something up. He has to bring something important up in the meeting. And he knows it's going to be a little bit tense in there. Now, to bring something up means to tell people something. And usually when we use this, it's something serious, or it's not just something that's some gossip. You know, it's something a little bit more serious. And in Sam's case, he has to bring up the fact that results aren't going very well. So he has to tell his boss and tell his workmates that results at the moment in sales just aren't going well. Sam puts his head down for the rest of the day, which means that he just focuses again on work. It's quite similar to knuckle down. It's not quite as strong, I don't think, but yeah, he puts his head down and gets on with work because he wants to get off work early. To get off work early, which means to finish work early. Now, you can ask people, what time do you get off today? What time do you get off today? Or you can say, to talk about the past, oh, I got off work late last night. It was 11 p.m. before I got home. And in fact, when I worked in Spain, I used to teach in a company where people worked really long hours. And then I also worked in a different company where most people got off work around 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon. So it really varied when I worked in Spain. But anyway, back to Sam. He wants to get off early because he's arranged to meet up with friends. To meet up with friends. Now, this is a phrasal verb, to meet up, that we use all the time, especially talking about friends in our daily life. You can say decided to hang out with friends, to meet friends, but meet up is a little bit more focused on the actual meeting and the time. So I'm meeting up with friends tonight, for example. But Sam is a little bit nervous because he's heard that Dave is going, and, well, he doesn't really get on well with Dave. He doesn't get on with Dave. So to get on well with, or to get on with. Now, this just means that he doesn't like Dave. Dave probably doesn't like him. They don't connect. They don't have a good, friendly relationship. However, he's decided, you know what? I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go and make the most of it to have fun. But the good news is Sam has a great time. He actually splashes out on a very fancy dinner, which means spends a lot of money. To splash out on something. This means to spend money on, to spend more than you normally do on. And it's a way to treat yourself in a way. So someone might say, oh, I splashed out on this very expensive suit. But I love it. It's what I've wanted for a long time. Or to splash out on a fancy dinner, to splash out on drinks. We tend to use it when we're buying something that has some luxury to it. It's not necessarily something we need, but it's something we want. So he splashes out on a very fancy dinner. But he's cutting back on sugar, so he didn't get a dessert. To cut back on sugar. This means to try to reduce the amount of sugar that you eat, to cut back on something. People say, I'm cutting back on going out at the moment, or I'm cutting back on sugar, I'm cutting back on alcohol, I'm cutting back on coffee, because they feel these things aren't good for them. And if they cut back on them, then they're going to feel better and things are going to be better. So to cut back on something means to reduce your consumption of something or to reduce doing something. Now here's where it gets interesting. Sam runs into an old friend from school. Her name is Emma. So he runs into Emma from school. Now to run into someone means that you meet them by chance. So when you meet up with friends, this is arranged over text or WhatsApp. You say, hey, do you want to meet up tonight? Sure, let's meet up at 6. Cool, great. But to run into someone is when you just go, oh, hi, Emma. I haven't seen you for a long time. How's it going? How are you? Oh, great. So to run into someone means to meet somebody by chance. And Sam has, let's say, a little crush on Emma. He's always liked Emma. And he's at the part of his life where he wants to take some risks. So in that moment, he decides to ask her out. And he asks her out. He does it. I bet you're wondering, what does she say? Well, she says, sure. So Sam, on his way home, is on cloud 9. He decides to walk through the park to go home because he needs to sober up a little bit. So walk through the park is going into the park and enjoying the surroundings in this case. And to sober up, this is a great phrasal verb to know. It means to go from the drunk state to the non-drunk state. So if you drink too much, you are drunk. And to sober up is that time it takes to go to the non-drunk state. So after walking through the park, he gets home at around 8 o'clock and decides to switch on the TV. So you can switch on the TV or turn on the TV. Two phrasal verbs, they mean the same thing. But here's an interesting one. He then flicks through various TV shows. Okay, so he flicks through TV shows, which means, you know, when you're on Netflix or Prime or whatever app you use to watch TV, to flick through means to just scroll and to see what's on, what you want to watch. And a lot of the time people spend too much time flicking through TV shows, not sure what to watch. But Sam decides to watch something and he's not really watching it, to be honest, because instead he just scrolls through Instagram. So you flick through Netflix and TV shows, but you scroll through Instagram. And that just means when you're just going down and looking at posts and looking at pictures and looking at pictures, then you like it. And then you go on someone else's picture and then you check that out and then you see something else and to scroll. So when you're on your phone, you scroll. And then when he's doing that, a friend calls, but he doesn't want to answer. So I don't know if that ever happens to you, but then he texts them just to say, hey, can I call you back? Can I call you back? So to call back means to return a phone call. Call someone back. He watches a little bit more TV. He's still on Instagram a little bit too. And then he remembers that he hasn't worked out today. He hasn't exercised. So to work out means to exercise. So he warms up on his exercise bike and works off some extra calories from dinner. And then he gives up because he's feeling lazy. So those are 3 phrasal verbs. To warm up on an exercise bike means to get your muscles, get blood into your muscles, so then you can exercise quite hard. To work off extra calories means to burn calories in this case, to work off extra calories. And then he gives up because he's feeling lazy. He's had too much food. He's a bit tired. It's a bit late, so he gives up. He stops exercising. But there's one last thing he does before going to bed. He puts the kettle on. So put on the kettle. He gets out a cup. He gets out his new tea. He then tosses in a tea bag. He pours the hot water, to make tea. And then he waits for it to cool down before drinking it. Okay, so get out a tea bag, get out a cup. I think you can understand that. Toss in a tea bag. Very specific here. You can put in a tea bag, but if you're in the UK, you might toss it in, which means to throw it in. I am not very good at throwing tea bags into cups. I just can't quite get it in there. I'm usually quite good at sports, but when it comes to tossing in tea bags, I can't do it. But then he waits for it to cool down. So for it to cool down, to go from hot to cold. So you warm things up in the microwave, you heat things up on the stove, and you wait for things to cool down. Because you don't want to drink boiling hot tea. You don't want to drink tea that's really hot. Sam then goes to bed and turns on his alarm clock for the next day. And then he puts on a podcast, and falls asleep listening to it, which you might be doing right now. All right, so those are the phrasal verbs for today. I hope you found that useful. Again, what I recommend you do, and I'll talk about the challenge in a second, is to go to the description, read these phrasal verbs, okay? And read the sentences as well if you have to turn on subtitles. And maybe listen to this a few times. I'll leave a auto chapter in the description so you know where to start the story and where to end the story. Okay, so then you can just go straight to the story again and just listen to that part without listening to the introduction. Now, the challenge. Are you ready? What I recommend you do is this. Go to the description, read the phrasal verbs, and then talk about your own day and use these phrasal verbs, or use as many of these phrasal verbs as possible. So, to read these phrasal verbs, and to write out your own sentences using the phrasal verbs that you've just learned in this lesson. And then, this is the important part as well. Get feedback on your writing. There are various ways to do this, and I highly recommend getting the app that I recommend. I'll leave a link to it in the description, because it's going to correct your writing for you. It's going to tell you if you use the wrong tense, if you use the wrong preposition, if you don't use the correct object or pronoun, etc. It is really useful if you want to practice writing on your own. The other way is to find somebody who can go through this for you. And I'll leave some resources for that so that you can try various programs out to see if they work for you. But the key here is to just practice writing. I highly recommend that everybody practices writing as much as possible on a daily basis if they can, even if it's just writing down some of your thoughts and what you did yesterday. But the task for today is to write your own sentences using these phrasal verbs to tell your own story about what you did yesterday, or what you normally do, or what you're going to do tomorrow, or what you're currently doing today. Use different tenses. Use these phrasal verbs. That way, you'll know if you truly understand the phrasal verb and how to use it. And then also, it's just going to help your grammar and your writing in general. So again, I hope you found this useful. If you did, then please like and share it with a friend. It really does help me. And if you're new here on YouTube, then subscribe. Subscribe and turn on that notification bell. It's great to have you. Okay, thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.